Computer. Okay. Come on. Okay, so please open your poll app, and then we'll have current events and discussion on today's topic. And then coming up, your weekly journals. And then next week, we'll complete this topic. Okay, so oops. Thanks. Open this up. Okay. Are you ready? Five, four, oops, there goes my mouse. This is a 3, 2, 1. Which of the following is not a component of energy expenditure? BMR, calorie consumption, physical activity, or the thermic effect of food? Which is not a component of energy expenditure? Five, four, 3, 2, 1. Right, the correct answer is calorie consumption. Energy expenditure is made up of basal metabolism, physical activity, and the thermic effect of food, which are actually the 3 things you're calculating for your diet project for your energy expenditure, as well as you'll be calculating your energy intake. Negative energy balance results in weight loss. True or false? Five, 4, 3, 2, 1. The answer to this one is true. I'll fix it. It's true. Negative energy balance does result in weight loss. When we talk about the energy equations, weight is a balance of intake and expenditure. When you take in more calories than you expend, you're in positive energy balance and you gain weight. When energy intake is equal to energy expenditure, you're in energy balance and you should maintain weight. When energy intake is less than energy expenditure, this is my scale, you're in negative energy balance, and that should result in weight loss. Energy expenditure is determined using a bomb calorimeter. True or false? Oh, great. Do I have this one right? I can make a note. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay. The bomb calorimeter is used to calculate calories found in food items. So it's more on the energy intake side than the energy expenditure side. And physical activity refers to the voluntary movements in the body. True or false? Five, 4, 3, 2, 1. Right, this is correct. If I can get my mouse to go in the right place, but right. So we have energy intake and we have energy expenditure, and we'll talk about voluntary and involuntary movements. I talked about this in the video. And physical activity, the energy used for voluntary movement, and can account to up to 25 to 30% of your total energy expenditure. Any questions about the poll questions? All right, so we're also going to talk about BMI. I'm not going to go a lot into this now because it's one in the discussion questions, but I did want to let you know that while the video I asked you to watch for today has lots of numbers in it, someday I'm going to go through that and get rid of all the numbers. I have yet to figure out what the benefit is for knowing all this information. Perhaps you can help me with it, just because I've done so much work with folks who have disordered eating and eating disorders. I just don't like to use specific numbers anymore. And BMI is an interesting classification, which we'll talk more about in discussion questions. All right, I have current events. John, Ria, and Nick. Do I have those right today?
Yeah, that's right.
All right, let me just get out of this so I can see. Okay.
For my current event, I found a article on Science Daily about the regular use of acid reflux drugs and a heightened risk of, and it's linked to a heightened risk of type 2 diabetes. And so the study was, it uses three separate studies. So the one was a nurse's health study, and another was health professional follow-up study, and then nurse health study too. And I think it encompassed 204,000 people. And so it found that starting in 2000, they started asking about what people take the proton pump inhibitors, which are the acid reflux drugs. And so the survey lasted for 9 to 12 years over the time that they started asking about the PPIs. And over that time, 10,000 people were diagnosed with type 2 diabetes. And they found that if you took PPIs, you had a 24% higher risk of getting type 2 diabetes. And so if you took them for up to 2 years, it was a 5% increased risk, and more than 2 years was a 26% increased risk. And they also found that the risk wasn't affected by like sex, age, history of diabetes in the family, smoking, alcohol intake, diet, activity, physical activity, high cholesterol, or the regular use of anti-inflammatory drugs. And yeah, that's basically what the article is about.
So did they have a proposed mechanism of action through which these PPIs can increase risk for diabetes? Because it's always interesting to me when what they do is they collect all this data,
yep,
and then they see what was when they started out the study, what was their hypothesis? I mean, I'm not asking you to know this, but was their hypothesis taking PPIs is going to increase, type 2 diabetes, and then they did the study, and then these confirmed their hypothesis, or did they collect all this data and this is something that stood out?
I think they just collected all the data from 3 different studies that happened beforehand.
Right.
Because I think they said the global prevalence of type 2 diabetes was 8.5%, and they wanted to find out if the use of PPIs was linked to the high prevalence.
So are we looking at a correlation might not prove causation kind of thing here?
Yeah, maybe. I just thought it was interesting that all the risk factors that that I mentioned weren't didn't affect the PPI users.
So what I wonder is that a risk factor for type 2 diabetes is being overweight.
Yep.
And being obese. And people who have those kinds of issues also have heartburn, because that might be due to diet, it might be due to physical changes that occur as they gain that weight. And so they happen to be taking PPIs while the weight might be what the risk is for type 2 diabetes. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You know what I'm getting at? And this is where, are the PPIs a marker for people who are overweight, or are they, that's, again, I don't expect you to know that, but then my question is, what is the alternative? What are they proposing for people to do who have reflux, who have, for whom this takes? What good is this information?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
And I will tell you, I take PPI, so I'm I'm a little bit, I want to know more. The other thing I wanted to know when you were talking about the risk, I want to know, was that absolute or relative numbers, compared to, I mean, if there were 100 people, I'm making this number up, who they found had developed diabetes in one group, and then in the group, I'm sorry, that you had 100 people with diabetes in the one group, and then the people taking the PPIs, there were 125 people. That's a 25% increase. But that's an additional, that's 25 people out of 225, an additional 25 out of the whole number.
Yeah.
So that's why it's important to know about absolute, and relative risk. So, and I'm not going to stop taking my PPIs because I like them. Okay, thank you. Ria, what do you have?
Hi, so I found an article or peer-reviewed paper that talked about how excessive sugar intake could contribute to aggressive behavior, ADHD, and bipolar disorder, which I thought was pretty interesting, thinking that there was a correlation between the two. But so it says that, oh wait, 1 second, sorry, let me pull up my notes.
It's all right. Take your time.
It said that they hypothesized that the high sugar intake may be a major stimulus that can assist in externalizing behavioral disorders. So there wasn't many specific studies done, but they did do one study at the University of the University of Colorado at the medical campus. And it was published in the Evolution and Human Behavior journal, I believe. But basically, they presented a supporting hypothesis saying that the role of fructose and a component of sugar in high fructose corn syrup and uric acid is there for increasing the risk for behavioral disorders, and how the refined sugars in the high fructose corn syrup may have a contributory role in the pathogenesis of behavioral disorders that are associated with obesity and the Western diet as well.
Okay.
But then they also say that they don't blame aggressive behavior on sugar, but note that it may be a contributor instead. But
So
that's all.
How did they determine that? I mean, was there a scale of behaviors? Was it observations? Was it parents?
I believe it was an observational study.
Okay. Yeah. Again, my question would be, how did they measure it? I mean, if you have parents reporting, or was there a way to blindly give these kids, a sugar sweetened beverage, or a, artificially sweetened beverage, or, so that you could compare? Was there a control group? Because this is something that is very commonly believed, that sugar causes, this excess energy or, changes in behavior. But how does the science support it? How does it not? So these were things, I mean, I'm not a fan of shoving sugar in in small kids, but I also think that we have to make as best a decision we can on the best information available. And I would just, I wouldn't want parents to feel guilty, and I'm glad they're saying that, that you shouldn't, but it's, there's a little bit more information we should always ask, but that's science and that's how you do it. So what made you interested in this?
Just because I know when I was little, I liked sugar, so I didn't know if it was like a big thing that, I mean, nowadays I feel like people are not controlling what they give or like to give their kids, so it could be an issue that that like the more sugar that we have when we're younger, it could affect us when we're older, which could be interesting.
So I wonder how that might work though. How is it affecting your neurotransmitters? Is it affecting, because when we talk about how food's digested and absorbed, is it staying in our system? Is there something about, and the other thing, just to throw out there, high fructose corn syrup, when we talk about what high fructose corn syrup is, regular table sugar is sucrose. It's made up of glucose and fructose in a 50-50 proportion, right? 50% one. So high fructose corn syrup, there are two types, and one of them is 55% fructose and 45% glucose. So it's not that much different when they talk. Now, I always objected to calling high fructose syrup unprocessed, because you have to process the sugar to get that higher fructose content. But in terms of it, being overwhelmed with fructose, and fructose being the evil that it's been cited for being, I don't think the science supports that. I mean, I know that, so, and I wish I was a shill for these companies, but I'm not. Okay, and last but not least, Nick, what do you have?
Yeah, so mine is also about sugar.
Okay.
One time recently, I was scrolling through Instagram and I saw a video of this like athlete who was talking about the benefits of eating sugar right after a workout to like replenish your like sugars in your body. And he said that by doing this, you will have a much better protein absorption. So I thought that was pretty interesting. I thought that was a pretty interesting take. So I did a little bit more research.
Okay.
I found like this article about basically supporting that idea about why sugar should be part of your like post-workout diet or whatever. And it was like in the article, it was supported by this registered dietitian, and she specializes in like athletic diets. And it basically,
do you know who it is?
Yeah, Kim Feeney.
Okay.
But it says that like for athletes completing shorter workouts, they recommend like including candy after a workout, like simple candies like gummy bears or like Twix, things like that. And it says when you place your body under physical stress, your body releases cortisol, which plays a role in breaking down muscle tissue. And like when you work out, a lot of this cortisol is running around in your body and your system. And by using simple carbs to spike your blood sugar, your body releases insulin, which facilitates the shuttling of proteins and carbs into your muscles to maximize muscle protein synthesis and repair. So basically, if you time up the sugar intake correctly, then it'll help spur post-workout recovery and growth.
Did they test that?
In this article, there's no like testing like one would expect, but I've been looking at other tests. Like I'm trying to find one of like someone testing sugar after a workout in this type of scenario. But I'm having a hard time like finding one.
So Nancy Clark has a blog, and you might be able to find something on her blog, an article that she has, or James Fell, or maybe you can even email them a question. I do know, and we'll talk about this when we talk about fitness, which I guess is the topic that comes up after this one, that after a workout or after, well, always use the marathon as an example, you want to replenish your glycogen stores. And your glycogen stores are most hungry right after an event. It doesn't mean that if you don't get your carbs right away, your glycogen stores will never refill. It's just, or replenish, but that right afterward, it seems like your muscles are most eager to take up the glucose. And what Nancy Clark recommends is chocolate milk and French fries, because it has protein, it has carbohydrate, it has electrolytes, and it's got all, and chocolate. So what else do you need? But I haven't read her latest book, you know, in terms of how it might affect protein. So that would be interesting if you found any more on that.
Yeah, I might look more into that.
Yeah, yeah. All right. Thank you. These are very interesting. All right. And what did I get off the Padlet? Let me see. Folks' questions. Oops.
Can I ask a quick question about the
Yeah,
project?
absolutely.
So on the Look Like Me form and on a couple of the other forms, it said energy in kilocalories, but I think it needs to be in just calories, right?
It's yes. Actually,
Okay.
if it's the bomb calorimeter that measures calories, it
Mhm.
actually measures kilocalories. That's the
Right,
most,
which is what the program gives us anyway. But
and yeah, for our purposes, kcals and calories are the same thing.
so it doesn't matter whichever.
No. I mean,
Okay.
your apple, a medium-sized apple, is actually 60,000 calories. If you
Yeah,
were
I was
measuring
just
them.
because
Oh,
some of the things like the snacks I would eat or whatever are like 100 calories, like a chocolate bar or something. And
Mhm.
so but I can't put it in kilocalories
Oh.
because then it would round to 0, right? So
I see what you're saying. Well, round up. Just
Okay.
round up. Yeah, don't, keep out
Okay.
decimal points.
Thank you.
Oh, okay, so we were just free associating here. This didn't have anything to do with the topic. Okay, I gotcha. Okay, and I encourage that. All right, so Ria, you asked, do I think different diets work for different people? Absolutely. It's not a one size fits all. I think that was a mistake that my profession made back in the 80s when we were recommending everybody consume, count fat grams. And I think it's a mistake now when you hear that, this diet is the one that the movie star or the celebrity or the athlete is using, therefore everybody should use it. What do you think? Or what made you ask this?
I just feel like different celebrities market different diets, so they don't really understand, like, obviously they're not going to know you personally, know your body type and your intake, so I didn't know why, I mean, I guess for money, but
Yes.
why they would market that specific diet if they don't know how your body's going to react to it or how it's going to work for yourself.
It's an ego thing. Plus, I just think that, when I work with folks and when I've worked with folks, I want to know what foods they like to eat. I want to know about their, what kind of activity they like to do. And I want to design something that they're going to live with and that they can stick with, that can become part of a lifestyle, not just a diet. And I always go to the example, if you told me I could never eat Oreos, I'd say, forget it. So I'd rather work with somebody where they have 3 Oreos instead of 6. So yeah, everybody's different and it's not a one size fits all. Then Rosa, how safe is it to drink melatonin? I have never heard of melatonin as a drink. Where is that coming from?
Well, I wasn't referring as a drink. I was referring as with pills, like drink it like with water.
Oh, I don't, it's mixed. It works. Different things work for different people. There's some people who, the phrase is they swear by it, others swear at it. My experience, because I have insomnia with these kinds of things, is that ultimately it's better to learn how to sleep without any of these kinds of things. But my example, it took me decades to get there. I mean, after many years, I finally started practicing cognitive behavioral therapy. So some people it works for, some people it doesn't. I've heard folks have weird dreams when they take it. I've heard all kinds of strange. Has anybody ever used melatonin or know anybody who uses melatonin?
I've used it in the past. It kind of gave me weird dreams, so I stopped.
Yeah, I've
I
just
use it
heard.
from time to time. it definitely gives me really weird dreams. And it's, well, I don't know if my dreams are weirder or if I just remember my dreams, whereas normally I don't.
Right, right.
But yeah, they're pretty weird, and I really only use it if my sleep schedule has like kind of spiraled out of control. Like I had a couple, maybe a couple nights where I didn't go to bed until like
Sure.
4 or 5 due to circumstances, and I just want to get back on track.
Sure. No. Sleep is really important. I talk about it in my health and disease class. Yeah. There's, I guess, Benadryl gives me very weird dreams. But anyway, Marina, is there a difference between drinking cold or hot water when it comes to digestion or any body functions? Where's that question coming from?
Well, so I usually visit China every summer because part of my family lives there. And whenever we go, they all, China always, at restaurants, if you ask for, ice water, they look at you, weirdly.
Oh.
And, and then at home, whenever I want to drink cold water, my mom always, tells me how it's, bad for me, but she'd never, said why.
Mm-hmm.
And she's always like, oh, why don't you just drink hot water like I do? And she only drinks hot water. She can't, take cold water. And so, she thinks that, it's because, when you drink hot water, it makes your body warm, so it makes, everything work better. At least that's her theory.
Yeah.
But, I just wanted to know if there was actually, a scientific, answer.
But, you still have to have some place to sleep when you go visit. So. No, there isn't. I mean, some people, that's why, Rhea, your question was, everybody's different. And whether it's because you grew up a certain way, thinking certain things. I have my neighbor's Russian, and her father doesn't think anybody should drink anything cold. It's sort of a cultural thing. And some people drink the warm water with lemon because it's an Ayurvedic practice and they think that it improves digestion. There's no science to support that, but it's a cultural thing. It's not hurting anything as long as it's not being done in place of something that is, I don't know, being used instead of medicine or something. But I think in terms of, I think there was, if you drink 10 glasses of ice cold water at one time, you might burn an additional 10 calories, but I don't know that it's worth it for those 10 calories. So yeah, and in terms of helping in digestion, one thing I have learned from folks who are in this area is that if you can handle it after you've been doing intense exercise, that drinking cold water might leave the stomach more quickly. We've talked about how nutrients are absorbed from the small intestine, but water and alcohol can be absorbed from the stomach. And that if you've been exercising intensely, that cold water might rehydrate you more quickly. How much more quickly, I don't know. And if you're someone that it makes you ill to have cold water after exercising, then of course you shouldn't do it. Okay. All right, let's see. I wanted to, this came in, I saw this yesterday, and just because it's happening right now, Kevin Hall, I think we may have looked at one of Dr. Hall's studies. It had to do with ultra-processed and unprocessed food. He's now, they're recruiting eligible research participants from anywhere in the US to travel to Bethesda as soon as possible to complete their dopamine and eating behavior study. So if anyone's interested, I guess it'll be on the recording. And you can look it up. They will pay. It's a 5-day inpatient stay. I will tell you that when you stay in a metabolic ward, they measure everything that comes in and goes out, depending on what the study's about, but they also compensate you and you would be participating in research. So if anyone's interested, I did tell him I would be posting it for my students. All right, so we're gonna break into discussion groups. Well, talk more about dieting when you come back. Yeah. All right, let me just pause. All right, group 1, what do you have for us?
So our question was about the surface area and how it's involved in energy expenditure, as well as whether or not BMI is a good tool for assessing body composition. And basically what we decided is that the larger the surface area, the more energy is required to maintain body temperature. And as a result, they also have a higher BMR. And we didn't believe that BMI is a good tool for assessing body composition because it doesn't have it doesn't differentiate between fat and muscle, and therefore it may tell someone they are overweight when they just have more muscle than fat. And also, we recognize that age is also an important aspect to consider because everybody's body changes with age.
Yeah. One of the reasons why we recommend being active throughout your life is, one, it can affect body composition so that it can increase your muscle mass and decrease your body fat. And muscle is a more metabolically active tissue, not as much as we want it to be, but it does improve your body composition and may overall be associated with reducing risk. Has anybody ever had their body composition checked by any of the methods that I talked about in the video? No skin calipers, no bioelectrical impedance, no nothing? I think you might be the first class I've ever had that didn't have any of that stuff. Or you're just too shy. Okay. Well, I've had a number of them done. I was in a study years ago when, after I had my first kid, we lived in State College, Pennsylvania, which is Penn State University, which is a huge research facility. They have lots of research there. And so I was in a study for, it was called postpartum weight changes or something after you have a kid. And I did have underwater weighing done. And I also had the skin calipers done, and they would be very different. The numbers were very different. And one of the things I said in the video about skin calipers is that the more experienced you are at using them, the more accurate they are. And I was being tested by somebody who supposedly was experienced using these. So I don't know what these things mean. Do any of y'all want to know what your body composition is? Are people interested in that? My athletes, muscle builders? Liars, all of you. Yeah, well, I've worked at county, not fairs, but health fairs, and we would do body compositions. We used a machine called bioelectrical impedance. Basically, it was something that you hold and you put in your height and your weight and your age, which should not affect your body composition. And then you push the on/off switch, and it sends a small current through your body because electricity travels differently through different types of tissue. And I can tell you for a fact that nobody ever left our table smiling. Nobody was ever happy. So I didn't like that. Okay, group 2, what was your question and answer? Group 2. Nick, you want to be the ambassador since you forgot to pick somebody?
Yeah, I could be the ambassador.
Okay.
So wait, let me just pull up the doc. Our question was, what is the difference between apple and pear-shaped bodies, and how do these shapes affect disease risk? And apple-shaped people have like larger waists, and then the pear-shaped people have larger hips, and then the difference they affect disease risk because apple-shaped people have like higher risk of disease because of the fat, where the fat is stored. It's stored around the organs, but then pear-shaped people is just like under the skin, so it's not as likely to result in chronic disease. And then to change your body shape, like a diet that you could have is a low-fat diet, and that would be able to change your body shape.
Okay, so that was a trick question. There's no way to do that.
Oh, okay.
But you will see advertisements that say follow this diet, and you can change you can't spot lose fat, you can't redistribute it. It's cooked into your genes, not literal. I mean, not GENES genes. It's what you inherited from your family, what your body type is most likely going to be. What you can do is exercise and be as healthy as you can in the body that you have, but there are no diets, there are no magic ways to change your apple or pear. So don't be taken in. If it sounds too good to be true, it probably is. All right, who's our next group? Group 3.
All right, so basal metabolism is all the energy expenditure your body uses for involuntary functions, such as breathing or your heartbeat. And these are the vital functions that your body needs to continuously perform in order to sustain itself. And factors that can increase BMR is if you have body size because you have larger surface area and need to maintain your heat, so you need more energy for that. and also actually being sick can also increase your BMR. And factors that decrease your BMR are your age as you get older, and also fasting, because your body doesn't know if it's involuntary or voluntary, so it has to use less energy so that it can maintain an energy level for a longer time.
Yes, I've worked with folks who have anorexia nervosa, and their BMR is very, very low. And it's very disturbing because we have people in parts in the world who don't have food, and that's why their BMR is so low. But actually, I shouldn't say it like that because it sounds like I blame them. These people have a mental, have a mental illness and they're not well. But yeah, when you don't eat, your body doesn't know whether that fast is voluntary or involuntary, and it's going to act to conserve all the energy that it can get. Yeah. So it's going to do that by reducing your metabolism or the rate at which you burn calories. Okay, next group. What do you have?
Okay, so our question was about the difference between the value seen for protein between the BOM calorimeter and your physiological value by the food you eat. And so the protein value is much higher than other nutrients given the BOM calorimeter, because our bodies you have to do the nitrogen adjustment because the bodies can't use nitrogen as a source of energy. So the BOM calorimeter burns it, but our bodies can't. And the adjustment, I think, is 1.3 calories per gram that you have to take away.
Right. So one of the things that I talked about in that part of the video was, yes, the BOM calorimeter, and you were saying it, kind of basically gets rid of everything. It burns it down to ash, which is supposedly the mineral content that's in the item that's being tested. And our bodies are not as efficient as a BOM calorimeter. But interestingly, for proteins, carbohydrates, and fats, but for some reason we are just as efficient as a BOM calorimeter at breaking down alcohol. It's 7 calories per gram in a BOM calorimeter, and it's 7 calories per gram in our body. And I have no idea what any of that means. So, okay, group 5.
So our question was, what is essential fat, and like why is it important, and then how effective is BMI in determining disease risk? So for the essential fat question, they're fats that we must consume for good health because the body can't synthesize them. And women have more of these essential fats because they give birth to children, and essential fats are important because the body can't produce them itself or function without them. And then the BMI is not very effective in determining disease risk because, like, for example, 2 people with the same height and weight can look very different, and one can be significantly more fit than the other. So it's just not an accurate representation.
So what's interesting between this question and the apple and pear-shaped question women tend to be the pear-shaped, and women tend to have higher essential fat, and women who have eating disorders want to get that fat down really low. That's part of the disorder. And when you lose a lot of body fat, women stop menstruating because we need a certain percent, that essential fat, in order for the body to be able to make the hormones that we need for menstruation, for reproduction. And when women stop that, when their fat gets really low, not only are they not menstruating, but they're at higher risk for developing osteoporosis because they need that estrogen. It's involved in bone health. It also increases risk for heart disease because estrogen may be protection against heart disease. So there is a certain amount of fat that is essential, and women have a higher amount of it. Yeah. Okay. Any questions about the material for this part? So there's some other videos that I want you to look at on this topic that we'll cover next week. And I will talk to you more or ask you more about dieting and your experiences with folks who have dieted. But there is one last slide I wanted to show you before we get out early today. Yes. Let's see if I can get it. Okay. And that is that there are no foods, combination of foods, special formulas, or pills that will burn off, melt away, or rearrange fat. Let me say that again. There are no foods, combinations of foods, special formulas, or pills that will burn off, melt away, or rearrange fat. And next week, we'll talk more about a healthy way to reduce your body fat, if that is something you want to do, and it doesn't involve special formulas, pills, or anything else. All right? Well, since I invited you into my home today, now I want you to get out. And I'll see you later.
Thank you, Professor.
Thank you, Professor. Have a nice day.